Thank you for the very nice presentation, Kubra. A question for you. Why call it Razi's method of tahqiq and not Ibn Sina's? So the question saying, to what extent is it specifically Razian when the maneuvers really appear to be Avicennan?
Yes, this is a very good question, because it's very hard to find the starting point of something. Why Ibn Sina and not Aristotle? So, but I would prefer to call it the Razi's method of tahqiq, because first, regarding to the impact and influence on the following centuries, the different works by Heidrun Eichner and Frank Griffith's last work, either also these works show that has shown that the post-classical era is really reconstructed, and the books are really structured according to Razi's main two works, Al-Mabahith al-Mashriqiyya and Al-Mulakhas fil Hikmah wal-Mantiq. But before that, I think this is important to pick up Razi, because this is like a change within the Kalam school, but in a manner which includes also the objections from the side of Avicenna. So Farabi, beginning with Farabi, but also Avicenna, both objected and criticized the Kalam theologians because of the analogy method. But Razi is the one who began to change and said, I can argue for the same thesis, for the same Kalam thesis, for the same position, Kalam position, without using the analogy. So first, because Razi's change and Razi's influence. Second, because Razi made it within the Kalam school. And third, because this is like a beginning point where Kalam philosophers, Falsafa philosophers, and after him, more often the Ishraqiyun and the Sufis, surrounded on around one discussion table. And I think the beginning point is Razi, indeed, not Avicenna.
All right. Let me just see if another question has popped up. Kubra, this is a question from Professor Nazif, visiting Harvard at the moment. Assalamu alaikum, Sidi. Kubra, thanks for the prep. Do you know any scholar responding to Razi's critique of the argument for God's knowledge? It was a tendency among the Mutakallimun to combine the teleological arguments with cosmological ones. They do not treat them as separate arguments. Both arguments collectively imply the existence of God understood as a necessary being with power, knowledge, and will. So we are talking about the knowledge of a necessary being when considering the Dalil al-Ihkam. This is the background. Within this background, this Dalil gains more strength. What do you think?
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Nazif Mukhtaroglu. I think that, yeah, I have to be honest. Maybe I should say that in the first chapter of Al-Matalib, Matalib al-Aliyya min al-Ilm al-Ilahi, in the second part of the first chapter, Razi himself argues for a teleological argument, but from a not really a epistemological or philosophical perspective, rather from a theological and religious perspective. He says that this argumentation is the Quranic argumentation. But so putting this on side, I think, and I hope I'm not wrong saying this, that Razi is the one who opened and put a structure which includes several argumentations. in one point, and he spoke about the possibility of attributes, possibility of the substances, so the possibility of accidents, the possibility of substances, the origination of substances and the origination of the accidents. And this, especially the possibility of accidents, is very similar to the teleological argument, questioning why is the world as it is now. And but in general, I would say that Al-Razi sees that the argument of the teleological argument is weak. I mean, he's saying it also in the first chapter. He says that it is weak, but the addition of weak arguments, the successive addition of weak arguments, can provide a strong knowledge. And therefore, I would say that it supports, from one perspective, the teleological argument also. I hope this answers the question. Poor me, because the speakers are not here, and I get so many hard questions from great scholars as Nazif Muhtaram.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's a pedagogical exercise as well when student Nazif is on the mic asking questions. Alhamdulillah. Let me just see if, while you might be thinking of adding other things to your response, if our participants have joined us. Have a look. As of not yet. I mean, if I can exercise liberty as host of this panel, some people might think that when we are doing kalam analysis or falsafa analysis and we bring in contemporary terms like fine-tuning, though there may be approximations within classical and post-classical kalam works, do you think there is a danger that we might be a bit anachronistic, like we might be putting concepts and ideas from contemporary, that carry contemporary sense and meaning, back into and implant it into sort of these classical, post-classical arguments? What do you think about that?
So, yeah, thank you very much for this question, and I found it very interesting. I mean, indeed, there is a danger, but with the last years, I tend to think that, and seeing, for example, the contemporary philosophy of religion, seeing how Thomism is it became got a renaissance in the philosophy of religion in the last years, and I think we have a good example in the Christian philosophy of religion, how to reuse the classical thoughts and the classical theses and argumentations. And I just want to mention that this is not a problem for us. I mean, Al-Razi had several traditions on his table, to speak. He had Avicenna with his terms and concepts. But after Al-Razi, the concept of Mahiyya, the concept of Hayula, changed and got a new umbrella and got a new code, which is used in different meanings. And I think it is a danger to just go and say, oh, there is a teleological argument there, and we have fine-tuned the design argument. Oh, they are so similar, so they must be the same. No, when we go deeper in the in the discussion, and not only handle the issue from its surface, only bringing the terms together, but try to find content which can be helpful for us in contemporary philosophy, then I think this is surely good.
Right. Brilliant. I've got a question written here. And I've got two actually. And then maybe with these two, we might sort of break up for and then resume at 1 o'clock for the next panel 3. All right, so Kubra, these are your two questions. So this is the first one. Hi Kubra, thanks for the great presentation. Do you think Razi's novel direction in tahqiq takes away or undermines traditional kalam's commitment to proving religious doctrines through reason? In other words, does it make kalam more philosophical and less theological? I'm asking this in light of his last work, presume that Matalib al-Aliyah, and statement on the uselessness of rational arguments. So that's the first one. Do you want to do that, or shall I read the second one?
No. I would forget it. So I
okay.
begin with the so I would say no, definitely no. From the beginning of Kalam, let's start with the Mutazilite Kalam. The main purpose and also the main assumption of the Mutakallimun was to show that we are in need of rational reasoning to have a justification for any theological assumption, for any theological thesis. So as long as we cannot prove that we can derive rational and rational argumentation and certain argumentation, certain knowledge about some aspects, then we won't have any fundament for any religion.
Right.
I mean, the most of the attendees and you also know all these details why the rational fundament is necessarily. But does this make Ar-Razi more philosophical? No, I wouldn't say it, because what's mean to be more philosophical? I think this is only like a dynamism in the history of a school. I mean, we see that Al-Ghazali criticized the previous scholars. We see that Al-Juwayni criticized previous scholars. We see that Baqillani has different opinions about free will and so on and so on. So this is only the dynamism in a discipline. My problem is that we lost this dynamism. It's like traditionalism in today's situation is like citing and quoting classical scholars and say design argument is weak because the classical Ash'ari scholars have said that it is weak. No, if Ar-Razi would live here and today in 2020 and 2023, he would apply his method of tahqiq, and maybe he would say, no, the weakness is abrogated. We can use this argument. We can, because we have new evidences. This was my purpose, what I wanted to show and what I wanted to call for.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll take this last question, and I'm probably going to have a break before I resume the next panel. So Kubra, this question's about Ar-Razi's sort of pessimism towards the end of his life after having a sort of stellar career in falsafa and kalam and just about everything. So the question is by an anonymous attendee: why should we follow Ar-Razi's method when its end result, as we can see from his own case, is theoretically speaking not certainty, but what is more probable or likely, as we can see in the Matalib? And practically speaking, the consequence is despair and hopelessness, as we can see in one of his last works on the malad dunya. Yeah, that's right. The sort of the censure, repudiation of worldly pleasures. So why should we follow a method if it only leads to despondency and despair and rational probability?
I think this isn't a pessimism.
Right.
In opposition, I would say that this is a realism in epistemological issues, because we have to consider that Ar-Razi discusses his epistemological issues and provides this thesis of knowledge being more likely and more probable, that this is enough. This is in opposition to Avicenna's apodeictic knowledge, ilm al-burhan. And we can see, and Ar-Razi has shown this also in different issues, that this is not really possible for a human being to know everything. And there are many problems also in the theory of Burhan. Ar-Razi comes with not with pessimism, but I would say he has more a realistic way of thinking. He says it's enough when I have more probability, more likelihood in my knowledge. And considering today's discussion in philosophy of religion and today's discussion in philosophy of science in general, we can say that approximately knowledge is really famous today. So yeah, in general, I won't say that this is pessimism. I would say that it's like we have knowledge from the phenomenal era, and this is okay. We do not have to search for the things in itself in another, so to speak, logical world, where we do not have any perception of it. Yeah, but honestly, I couldn't find any connection to his Risala Dam Ladhat Dunya and the epistemological issue. So yeah, sorry, I can't.
No, thank you. You know, I mean, and thank you for taking all those questions, Kubra, and for ending on this buoyant and optimistic, non-nihilistic note.
Yeah.